Just knowing that I couldn't be doing what I was actually in right now, and I had to find something
And
different.
like there's an exact moment everybody will look back and say, this is not for me.
So Carmen, I know you've been sharing a little bit about your story, but I want you to dive into a little bit. Like, where did you start? What is your experience? Like, what does that look like for you?
Sure, I can take you back to the very beginning, right? So, like most of us, we all, aside from you, we all went to Father Judge. We all pretty much did the similar thing. We were drinking, we were partying, we were staying out late, we were getting in trouble. So there wasn't really no journey there other than just progressing through life. Fast forward over to college, that's when I was, I carried over what I was doing from high school to college. I was partying a lot. Like I told you before, I had the house that everybody was at. Everybody from where we're at in the Northeast will come down to my house, right? We would party all the time. It wasn't until like the third year in college where I had a mindset shift. And what I was doing in college is I was paying people to do my homework. I was paying people to take tests for me. I was like, that were online and what I could do. So I was really just flunking. I was getting shitty grades other than I was barely getting by. But what I was doing was I was staying up all night and I was learning about things that I saw that truly had value to me. And one of the big quotes, which was, something I took home, was that 90% of millionaires were made through real estate one way or another. So I was like to myself, I kept thinking in the back of my head, I was like, okay, well, this is something maybe I could explore. I always thought real estate was cool, maybe being an agent, yada, yada, yada. I go into what is going to be my fourth year in college, and I realized that I'm still 2.5 years behind from graduating. So I'm like, what the hell am I going to do? I was hopping around majors. I was in business for like a couple weeks. I was in kinesiology, which at the time, when I first came into Temple, you could go either physical therapy or occupational therapy. Halfway in my second year, they split it, so you had to choose, right? So they broke up the kinesiology section in 2 different phases. I still was never even really interested in it. I couldn't even understand like anatomy. Anatomy was the hardest class there. So I was just really lost. I had conversations with my family and stuff like that as well. And my aunt, who's a radiologist, she was, she makes good money. Everyone's like, well, why don't you go to school to become a radiologist? So I'm like, cool. I wind up, realized I looked searching around Temple. There's no radiology program or anything like that. So I have to transfer out of Temple into another school, which is local, is Holy Family. So this was my third year in college, which the pandemic hit in March. So for me, is like I was starting up at Holy Family in late August. So when I started, so when the pandemic hit, I had so much free time, and I was like, that mindset shift like started to come a little bit more with like, hey, realtor, like being a realtor, stuff like that. Because I never truly felt like I was comfortable becoming like a radiologist. I was just doing it because my family kept putting it in my ear. So I decided to, start Ubering from like March to August, right? When I would get into the program, because I still had to finish out my year at Temple. And when I did so, like I was just making so like at the time they were like, it was a lot of money that I was making because I was working 60 hours a week, 50, 60 hours a week, making good money. I was like, dude, like I want to make this money forever, And I went over to Temple, I went over to Holy Family at the end of August. And when I went over there, I was literally a week in, and I realized I was in the X-ray room, and I was like, this is not for me. Like I cannot see myself doing this for the rest of my life. Like I'm stuck in the matrix, I felt like. So then I was continuing Uber for a little bit, but then I dropped out literally after 1 week. Went and got my real estate license, hopped into real estate. I was a realtor for about 2.5 years. I was still Ubering for the first 6 months until my time, I started prioritizing becoming a realtor a little more. My first year, I did about 17 sales, which is about $6.5 million in sales volume. That's pretty good for a first realtor. It wasn't like the best, right? But it wasn't like an average realtor sells 35 homes. I sold 17, so like I'm cool. I'm like, let me double that. So year 2, I did do 34 sales. But the problem was I felt like I always wanted to be an entrepreneur, and they always sold you on the vision of, hey, this is your book of business. You get to create this. You get to do this. But at the end of the day, I worked for a brokerage called Keller Williams, which I'm sure most people know is the largest brokerage. You're still working almost for like a corporate. You're in my eyes, you're a solopreneur within a big business. So I always wanted to become a business owner. And I'm like, this isn't like making sense for me. I still didn't feel comfortable, even though I was making a lot of money and stuff. So in my second year, I actually got connected with a buddy named Santos, who's now one of my really good friends. And he was a wholesaler at the time. And basically, we were talking, he was helping me buy rental properties. And he was like, yo, like, why are you doing all this work, cold calling, lead follow-up, going out on all these appointments, doing all these open houses all weekend, when you could just do wholesaling, another avenue in real estate and make 10 times the amount of money. And at the same time, you're also building a business. This isn't just you working for a company where there's not much leverage, because you're doing everything as a realtor. When you own a business, you can leverage out your time, delegate it to other people, and actually get people to grow alongside you. Sure, you can do it as a realtor, but it's a lot harder. So he kind of was like opening my eye up to things. I saw his business growing rapidly. I saw that me and him were putting like the same amount of time in each day, but his money was like way more than mine, right? So I was like, okay. So January of 2023 hit. I said, I'm going to make the mindset. I'm going to make the shift. I'm going to jump into wholesaling. I realized it was pretty similar. There was a few additional skills that I needed to learn, but other than that, it's still the same. Like a sales job is the sales job. It's lead generation. I chose a cold call for 3-4 hours a day, lead follow-up, and then go off on appointments, right? So it was pretty much the same exact thing, plus a couple other skills. I realized that, and it started to just pick up all crazy. So I was like, yo, like I want to, like I'm trying to 10x as fast. Like I now made the shift. I'm shifting my mindset. I can feel myself shifting my mindset. I need to start doing it more. So I make an Instagram post for a couple weeks, and I'm like, hey, does anybody want to make an extra? Any Uber drivers, like delivery people, or cops, anything of that nature? Anybody want to make an extra $3,500 to $7,000 a month? And I had this guy Jeffy slide up. We went to high school with him. I'm sure you guys remember him. Mm-hmm. And he was like, yo, like, what's this about? So basically what I wanted him to do was drive for dollars. Driving for dollars is where, you just go find distressed properties. Because when you're wholesaling, you're looking, for people that don't know, is like you're looking for a distressed property, you're putting it under contract, and you're selling that contract to somebody else for a higher number, and you're making in-between profit. I was cold calling, but I wanted to get exposure to more of the market. So I was like, he's like, like I'm Ubering temporarily until I find a new job. He just quit working at, wherever he was working at the time, a restaurant. And he's like, like I'll do this. And, when you see somebody hustle the way you do, you got to keep them by your side because they're valuable to you. So I saw him bringing in all these leads, all crazy. So I'm like, do you still you want to learn this more? Like I can show you how to, become better at sales, like this, that, and the third. And he's like, yeah, bro. He's like, whatever, I'm committed. I'm like, cool, come to my house. So we start cold calling side by side, this, that, and the third. And he's hustling. So I'm like, I always wanted to build out my own company. I want to build out this company. I said, I want to take this to $100 million. And he's like to me, he's like, dude, I'm by your side. Like I trust the process. I'm here till the very end. That's all I needed. So in May, I started up the company, REM Acquisitions. And we're not even a full year in, and we're going to be, just under a 7-figure business. We now have 8 employees, and we're just skyrocketing. We're growing year over year. Well, not year over year. We're growing month over month. Mm-hmm. So I took the opportunity that was in front of me, and I ran with it. And that's kind of where we are today.
Not year over year yet.
Not year over year yet, but we will grow year over year.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And so, I mean, from your experience, like how was that mindset shift coming out of college and moving into your own business, being a solopreneur to start, but then moving into a business owner? Like, what was that? What was that mindset shift for you? Like, how did you? I know you mentioned, you heard like 90% of millionaires
own real estate.
Yeah, own real estate or got it through real estate, whatever that is. Was that the thing that helped you switch over to like, all right, that's what I want to do then, or like, what was that for you?
So that was part of it, right? Because it made me realize that there's money that can be created anywhere else. But there was really 2 mindset shifts for me. The first one was when I transferred in the summer from, it had to be summer of 2020, from Temple to Holy Family. When I was there in that radiology room, that was the mindset shift that, I felt like I was trapped. I felt like I was going to start off making $50,000, $60,000 a year. It's not something I liked. I was going to hate my life. So that was the one mindset shift. So I need to get out of there and become in a business where I'm more self-employed and I'm in control of my income. So that's where I switched over to a realtor. Now, the second mindset shift was when I felt like I was stuck in a corporate job, even though I got sold the dream as an entrepreneur. So now which was as a realtor at Keller Williams, I now needed to realize that I need to shift out of, being stuck in this corporate mindset, because I felt like I was stuck in a matrix almost, right? Which essentially I was stuck in a matrix. I need to run my own business, because that's what I am. I'm an entrepreneur. I can build a business. Mm-hmm. I know that. So the second mindset shift was switching from a realtor over to starting this acquisition company.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
And I guess maybe, what was your guys' mindset shift in your lifetime?
I could tell you that right away. So I graduated college, went to school for real estate. I'm similar to Carmen, been in real estate for a couple of years, but I'm in a different sector. I'm in valuation, so a little different than being an agent. But I took my first job out of college, and admittedly, like, my main priority in college was to be there to party, right? Like, I wasn't really taking class super serious. I still graduated in 4 years, which I'm surprised about still. But I got a job. The first job that was offered to me, I took it because I wouldn't have a lot of other options. And I got there, and in college, I worked for a property group. I worked for the school, but my schedule was completely up to me, right? So I was in complete control of my schedule. I love that, and I work better that way. I think, at least, like, I work better when I'm in control of when I do things. Mm-hmm. So I took this job out of school. It was in Delaware, 5 days a week. You have to be in the office, and it was just not a good experience. It was a very small mom and pop business. And I knew right away the second I got there, my first day, I'm like, this is going to be like this. You just know when you're in for it. So I got there, and, day one, like, the training wasn't great. It was a lot of just, like, learn by just doing things wrong. But the problem was, it was such a small business. So, like, if you do things wrong, you're really backing up. Like, the backlog is huge, and then there's problems, and you got to stay late. You're not getting paid extra to stay late. And we started as a salary job, because you can't really get paid, like, commission when you're basically useless. Like, they just pay you, and you kind of assist on things until you become more proficient and get your licenses and whatnot. So, I had a moment where, we were supposed to get a quarterly bonus based off of how much work we were doing. And, I was doing pretty good for somebody fresh out of school. So I was owed, probably somewhere right around $7,000 is what it was, as a bonus on top of what I was supposed to get paid. And, we had a conversation. It was right around Christmas. I just put triple my credit card. It was probably stupid doing that without having the money. You live and you learn. But, I put a vacation on my credit card for like $1,500, $2,000 to go to, like, Cancun. And then he tells me, I'm not paying you. Like, I paid you a little too much the last quarter or whatever, which I don't know if that was true or not. But, and then I realized, well, one, okay, don't put shit on your credit card you don't have the money for. Painful lesson learned. I've since paid it off. It was a long time ago. But, I realized, I'm like, okay, I'm capped here at how much money I can make. My time, like, I'm spending 2 hours a day at least commuting. Gas was through the roof back then, if you guys remember. I was working out in Delaware, and gas was still like over $4 a gallon. It was crazy. So I realized, I'm like, I had a moment where I woke up, Carmen, and I said, wow, if my parents weren't here to help me out and help me with groceries and stuff, I am not making enough money to float rent, to float everything else that I'm doing. Like, I can't even cut out going out. Like, I have no money.
Right.
Like, I'm just breaking even. I'm just existing with what I'm making right now. And it got to a point where I was like, okay, I got to find a different job. Luckily, I was able to. It was a good time in the market for what I was doing to find a new position. So I was able to kind of quickly jump somewhere else. I got a bunch of offers, which I was happy about, way better than the offers I had when I came out of school. It was about 9 months after, because I kind of changed my act up a little bit. I started taking work pretty serious. And then I've been at that company that I'm at now for going on, that'll be 2 years next month. And, things have changed completely. I basically doubled my salary from the first year to the third year now, which was huge. I had to put a lot more work in, and I'm also way better at what I do now than I was a couple of years ago. But, my mindset shift was kind of like, I'm not making enough money. Like, I have to do something different. I'm coming home, and I remember, like, I had such a problem with smoking weed back then, because, like, I was just like, I feel like I had nothing to look forward to. I was like, I'm so excited to just come home, hit the bong, and just lay here and just be like, because I was miserable. Yeah. I realized how miserable I was, and I was just kind of like, or I would live for the weekends, go out, black out every weekend. So it was a combination of getting shorted on my pay, and then I had, like, one night, like I was telling you guys earlier, where I just got a little too drunk. I woke up, probably embarrassed myself, and it all hit me at once. And I was like, all right, you got to change your act up.
Yeah.
So
How about you,
I
Ann?
needed that.
I mean, very similar to yours, Carmen. Like I was in school, I was in nursing school, I was sitting in a clinical, and our professor had us pick a number on a scale of 1 to 10. And what she was asking for us was to go down the hallway and put a Foley catheter in an old woman. For those of you that don't know what a Foley catheter is, that's putting it in their urethra, which is down below the waistline. And I was like, not
pleasant.
not happening. I'm sorry. This is like, I'm not meant to do this. Everybody around me was like, oh, I'll do it. And I was like, good, because there's 0% chance that, like, if you asked me, I would have said no. And that's when I knew that I was doing something that I didn't want to do, similar to what you were saying. A lot of people were in my ear. I went to LaSalle High School. I got into an anatomy and physiology honors class as a junior. And I was like, oh, I love anatomy. Nursing, like, that was just like the gradual, like, I loved it, so I wanted to do it, and that was the main thing that you could do with anatomy. But from that point in time, that's when I had to pivot into, I had to do something different. Like, I can't be here anymore. So, I mean, it took me a little bit. I dropped out of school. I tried to become a sports writer, failed at that. Tried to become a public adjuster, failed at that. Tried to start a real estate company, failed at that. Like,
Go forward.
Yeah, exactly. I started finding out the things that I didn't want to do, or that I didn't enjoy, or didn't have a passion for. The one thing I'm grateful for in real estate is that I had that interest in owning rental properties, which I do now, but I pivoted back to that passion for anatomy and physiology, and that's when I got into nutrition, personal training, and found my passion, which, I mean, yeah, there's long days. No, it's not easy, but I love it. I love learning about it. I love talking about it.
Right.
And so that's what I'm doing. That's what I'm building. And, that was the pivot for me, was just knowing that I couldn't be doing what I was actually in right now. And I had to find something
And
different.
like, like, some people are like, yo, like, I just don't know where I'm at. Like, I don't know if, like, I'm making the right decision. Like, you'll know. Right?
You know.
There's an exact moment everybody will look back and say, this is not for me.
Mm-hmm.
What about you, Dan?
I'll keep it short. I think it was when I realized I actually had some agency over my decisions, and life wasn't just this kind of deterministic experience I was just going to go through. And kind of went back even to, like, applying to college. And I always wanted to go Penn State for quite some time. And I remember just having, like, people close to me, not family, but friends, who were like, you're not, like, smart enough to go Penn State. And it was kind of insulting, but, like, you kind of like, all right, well, I did go. And then when I joined a fraternity, and it's like, oh, well, someone else was like, well, you're not going to, like, do anything in there, just go party. Well, then I was able to actually become president of the fraternity and get a lot of good professional experience through that role, and a lot of great life learning lessons. And I got my first role graduating college. I was also kind of miserable in that role due to, like, the structure of it and just how things were executed. And then realized that, well, if I just cut certain things out, I could actually use that time, improve my life in different ways, and got a better role not too long down that line. So I think it was just more or less knowing that you're empowered to make your own decisions, and your decisions do matter, and life isn't just determined for you. And there are things that overarching factors that can influence you. But I think just realizing that by making even small adjustments, they could have, like, profound effects down the line. But
Right.
like, yeah, turning over to you, because you're talking about, like, how you started a business. And it's funny because I can picture everything you're saying into the realtor even. Mm-hmm. And then when it goes to starting a business, I'm like, that's hard for me to visualize. Like, what does that look like? So I'm curious for you, like, how was starting a business? Like, what were some, like, processes and things that you followed to, like, get kickstarted there and, be where you are?
Good question. So when you start a business, you're now have responsibilities outside of just a simple, hey, bringing in leads and it's all about yourself. You're now making hires and bringing on people that you need to get them aligned with your goal, because you're not going to start a business unless you have an end goal in mind. Mine was to build a $100 million business, and still is. So I needed to have people aligned. So like I said, Jeff was one of the people that I could tell was aligned with the vision when we sat down and talked about it. Then another younger kid came along. His name's AM. He is a hustler for his age of 17 years old. He is somebody that, like, is very disciplined, and I wish I was him when I was 17, because I would be 10 steps ahead where I am now, right? And he sees the vision as well. We sat down, had a meeting for 3 hours, just painting a picture of what the next 10, 15 years are going to look like. And he is on board with everything, And so it's like having, like, two people next to you, and, like, the full transparency, like, my company is now 8 people, right? 4 virtual, 4 in-house. And it's like, it's once you have these people align with you, it flows. But to answer your question, it's now like managing emotions, it's managing a lot of things, and it's adding systems and processes in place to help everybody succeed, because they're, as much as they believe in the process, if they don't see you're growing, they're going to have to look elsewhere. But if you see you're growing, if you see you're starting a company and you're building it from the ground up and you're moving forward, then people will trust the process and people will believe in you and they'll want to stay by your side.
And that's something really important that you just shared too, is it's not just painting the picture, but then backing it up with action as well, intentional action. And that's how you get people bought into it. I know,
That's interesting.
like, there's this like saying out there, it's like, oh, I quit my job to be a business owner and do all these jobs at the same time. So like, being a business owner, there's all these different things that you need to do to make sure you're compliant, make sure you're growing, make sure, you have employees bought in, make sure you have systems in place. So how is it for you to like transfer from being, I understand like generating leads and running a business and then stepping away from that and being the CEO and then diving into closing? Like, what does that look like for you?
Yeah, so it's actually one of the harder things that I've actually had to deal with, because I generally like being the player in the game. Like I like doing it, right? Like I like generating the leads, following up with the leads. I like closing the leads and stuff. But when you're a business owner, you need to step away, and realize that you have people there to leverage and help you and grow together. So there's a book, I think it's Great CEOs Are Lazy, and he talks about like the 5 hats. Now, see if I can remember off the top of my head, is like the player role, right? Where you actually have to, from time to time, get back into the roles of like where you once were, because in the beginning, you're doing everything. And then once you have people, you can kind of like fill in the shoes, but there might be times you need to get back into the role. The engineer is kind of like, building out the processes, the systems and processes, and that's the second hat. So that's like a step forward. So that's like something where I'm not in the day-to-day. I'm not in the player role throughout the whole day. I'm now pivoting over, having meetings with software developers, stuff like that. Then you have the coach, right? The coach is somebody who you need to, it's your company and it's your vision. You need to tell them the way you want it done. And I look at it like this: as long as somebody can do it 70% as good as I can, then I'm okay with it, right? But you need to show them how it's done. Then you got, I think it's the architect. So it's actually building the structure out of the company, and how you want the structure built, like how you want the pays, the commission based stuff like that. And what's that? Was that 3 or 4? 4. Okay, and then the last one's the learner. So continuously learning to how to grow a company, reaching out to other mentors, other people that are more than you, and continuously applying things that, into your business that will help you grow and get past. I never would have been able to, get my business to where it is in such a short amount of time. And it's not even that big, right? There's people that are way bigger than me. But from where I was last year to where I'm now, it like 10x'd. Right? So I'm grateful for that. I need to 10x again the next year. How do I do that? I need to get to the next level by talking to people that are at that level or above that level.
Constant and never-ending improvement. Something Tony Robbins says. Yeah, for sure.
What do you guys think of that? I mean, you guys are also, you have your own book of business. You have obviously your own book of business as well. Do you agree with that? Is there some other things you want to chime in that you feel that are valuable as well that I'm missing?
No, I agree with you. I mean, whenever I think about like work, right? Like I'm always asking guys that are ahead of me at work, the people who bill like $500,000, $600,000, $700,000 a year. I'm like, well, how do you do it? How do you get these jobs that pay you $60,000 in one shot? Like, how do you make that much money at one time? And just listen to what they say, kind of, and just apply it to what I do. And maybe they won't be making that kind of money in a year or two, but it comes quicker than you think if you are actually willing to ask the questions. I think being willing to ask the questions, and people love, like, if someone's good at their job, they usually like talking about it. So if you can ask them, like, they'll usually give you some good insight. If you just got to ask.
Yeah, right. I mean, changing the hats thing is one of the most difficult things for me. I'm a personal trainer. I'm a nutrition coach. Like, we have Grit and Gratitude. And all of our clients within Grit and Gratitude, they submit assessments, and I answer all the assessments. And so what I struggle with is, I guess being the player, answering those assessments, right? And then, I'll walk out of the office and my fiance will come to me with a problem and I just try to solve it right away. And instead of having like the fiance hat on, I have the coach hat on. So then I try to coach her through it. She's like, that's not what I need right now, right? And then transitioning from that to a personal trainer, like at the gym that I'm at, or transitioning into building out the systems, or what have you. So those are some things that I struggle with, but compartmentalizing those things. And even, dude, I just take a deep breath and I'm just like, all right, like I'll finish the assessments, I'll finish the check-ins, I'll take a deep breath, I'll visualize myself taking off my coach hat, putting on my fiance hat so I can be the best fiance I can. And I think that's an important thing, like no matter if you have a business or, you know, you're working in a corporate setting or you're in school, whatever that is, but being able to compartmentalize those things and realize that like who you are as a student doesn't need to be who you are as a friend, or who you are as a worker doesn't need to be how you show up in a family. Yeah. And I think the transitions, that's something, what'd you say was all CEOs are lazy? Was the book?
Great CEOs are lazy.
Great CEOs are lazy. I'm going to put that on my list so that I can give that a read because that's something I'm struggling with. But
it actually teaches you about the multiple hats of business. But like you said, it's multiple hats in just your life in general.
Yeah, for
right?
sure.
Like
for sure.
It's like you gotta know when to switch over that hat, like you're talking about, and say, hey, you need to give your girlfriend or your fiance or your wife attention here. You need to plan something. You need to take that initiative.
Yeah.
You know, so there's it doesn't have to be about business. It can be about all areas of life.
Yeah, 100%. And I think learning, I mean, I know similar to what we were saying earlier, like how skill sets can translate. Like when you learn how to better transfer or switch those hats in your business, you can better switch those hats in your life too. So,
agreed.
Yeah, Dan, what do you think about just the topic?
Yeah, no, I think it's interesting. I think it kind of boils down to being able to balance competing priorities, right? Because if you're involved in a number of endeavors, as you are, Ann, and Carmen, you're mentioning when you were in the realtor business and you were still kind of figuring things out, but you're doing everything on your own. You're a solopreneur. Like you have to like balance competing priorities. And as we discussed in a previous episode, that you were in a relationship too, like during this time. So I think it's balancing competing priorities, like with the podcast I have, and then the job I have outside of that, and then also in a relationship. It's kind of being able and capable and competent enough to like realize what needs attention in the moment, and then delegating what is like what you can and what isn't important. Like there's like kind of a structure to it, like, and what usually should be prioritized is what's important and urgent, and then what's important, and then what's important but not urgent, you can like put that to the back for a sec, and then what's non-urgent, non-important, you should completely delegate altogether or just get rid of. But the point being is, I think it's transferable to a lot of people, because I think people just do things as they come at them, and they don't realize the urgency, nor do they evaluate the importance of that task. They're just like hit with, and this is me too, to an extent. Like you hit with something and then you just react. Whereas like, do I really have to address this issue right now, or could I actually go towards something? And
yeah, like the way I determine that, and the same, I know Ant does it as well, because he helps me with my nutrition as well. But the one thing I use in my everyday life, and I've been doing it since actually before I dropped out of college, and I'm thinking about it, is the power list, right? It's the 5 most important tasks you need to do to get done your day to move you forward. And if you tie that in with your long term, like a 10-year plan, a 5-year plan, a year plan, and then a month by month basis, those daily actions add up over time. And if you're doing the right daily action, the most important tasks, you're gonna build that life out. Like me starting up a company and blowing up quicker than expected, it was planned. I have visions in place. I have things in place that this was just manifested into reality. So using a simple tool as a power list to determine what's the most important task will actually excel you, because you're getting 1% better every single day by doing that, and you're getting 1% better in the areas that you want to build that dream life.
Well, one thing I wanted to stress the importance of with the power list as well is it's not a to-do list. And it's not like a goal list either. It's not like I'm going to lose 10 pounds. It's like, no, talk about things that you can control. I can go to the gym today. I can develop a system today. I can learn something new. Read 10 pages of a self-development book, right? Things that you can actually measure, that you can actually do, that has 100% your control, right? Not dependent on other things, not dependent on things outside of your control, because then that's going to be, you could then put your ability to progress forward into somebody else's hands, and that's not what you want to do. So it's critical tasks that you can do today to move yourself forward that's in line with that long-term vision.
Yeah, and that was a mistake I made in the beginning, because I would say, hey, call this person today, when I thought that was, hey, call this person to work on this system, to do this, blah, blah, blah. But it was actually, I had to rely on that person to pick up the phone and answer me. So if he didn't answer, I said, can we talk tomorrow? well, then I was screwed. I would win a day. And it's like a mental game for me. It's a win and a loss. You put a W or an L. If you get all 5 things done, great, you got a W. And I keep track. Wait, so you track all these things. You have a proven recipe. So now it's easier, if you look 10 years down the line and you're like, shit, like I have this amazing life. How did I get here? Well, I have records dating back 10 years of every single thing I did to get to that level. And it's so much easier to help people at that point, right? Get to where you're going to be. Like you could say, hey, listen, this is what I did on day one. From every day from day one to now, this is what I did. This is the formula. It's hard work every single day to get where you want to be.
That's interesting.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, even today you're like, yo, documenting, and you took a video of this just to reflect back on and show the journey. I think that's a powerful thing to be able to do nowadays. And, if anybody wants more information on the Power List, what is it? Win the Day on MFCEO Project?
102, 102, one of those days.
Yeah, something around
107,
there.
107.
107. Look it up, Andy Frisella's podcast, but he does a whole breakdown on it. But I mean, for me, I've been doing it for over 1,300 days. Like similar to Carmen, I keep track of how many days I've done it, how many days I've won, how many days I've lost, what that percentage is, and I put it all in an Excel sheet to keep track of it so that I can continue to hold myself to that high standard. But I can easily say there's a night and day difference between when I didn't do that and then when I did do that, approach my day with these intentional actions that I can
It's personal accountability.
Yeah, 100%. And so, I mean, you've been sharing a lot about your business and everything like that. So, like, what are some of the big lessons that you've learned from running a business for over this past, a year, say?
Yeah. The first one I would say is reinvesting back into your business. That is something that, when you have to put out lots of money in the beginning when you might not have lots, it's scary, right? Because you're like, well, how am I going to make it back? But then if you continue to trust the process and you say, you know what, I'm going to put X amount of dollars out to get X in return, it's an ROI. And as long as you trust the process, your bank account's going to get bigger, bigger, and bigger. So that's the first one I would say is reinvesting back into the business. The second thing I would say is managing people's emotions when you're starting a business, because there's people, things don't always go right. Everything is ebbs and flows. It goes up, it goes down. You have good days, you have bad days.
For sure.
So you need to make sure, you're not getting emotional during those days, because if you're getting emotional and you're supposed to be the leader, everybody else is going to get emotional and it's going to be a shitty day. But if something goes wrong and because I truly believe that everything happens for a reason, everything works out in the end. I truly believe that. So if I know everything's going to work out in the end, my morning was rough because maybe a deal fell through or this happened, and everybody else is upset. But if you say, guys, it's okay. Like, let's focus on the next one. Everything happens for a reason. And then, they're not so frustrated throughout the day. And who knows, maybe at the end of the day, that deal comes back to you and gets finalized, or everything works out. So you say, see, guys, like, we didn't just waste a day being down and upset about something that fell through. We focused on what we can control and the future and moving forward, and it still worked out in the end.
So, Carmen, that comes down to what? Controlling the controllables, right?
Controlling the controllables, and then from a business perspective, if you're a leader, is leading a team and controlling their emotions.
And something that I'm big about too, and it ties into that first point of continually reinvesting into the business. It's delayed gratification is what it is. It's putting all instant versus delayed gratification. Like instant is just having it now. That's what a lot of people do nowadays with drinking, going out on the weekends, doing drugs or what have you. But delayed gratification is doing the hard thing now to have a benefit down the line. And that's exactly what it's like you have this money and you're like, okay, now I'm going to put it back into the business. But that's how you grow. That's how you get better. And that's how you achieve a certain goal, because you're pushing that desire or that result down the line so it can grow bigger and be more impactful for you.
Yeah.
So I
It's
think
like rolling
that's
a
awesome.
snowball down a hill. You're just rolling it down a hill. It gets bigger and bigger and bigger as long as it keeps going.
Perfect example. I love that.
Well, I think delaying personal gratification is where a lot of people struggle.
Mm-hmm.
I want to get your thoughts on this in a second, because you just see that, like, in a society where you get things so instantaneously, like your favorite restaurant, if you're watching a show, you kind of just pivot to the one that's next or new. If it's dating, maybe you just go on Tinder real fast. If it's something else, you can just hop on porn. Like, there's so many things that are just instantaneous that people just have at the click of their fingers, pretty much. And I'm curious on how you prosecuted that process of ensuring that you can delay that gratification successfully, because it's not just going to affect you is going to cascade down and affect all these other people, your employees and whoever else, if you don't execute properly. So, I mean, that's a lot of pressure. So I'm curious on like how you went about that.
Yeah, that's a really good question. So it's delayed gratification was something that was instilled in me from reading books from the very beginning. So I knew everything was going to work out in the end as long as I stayed the course, right? So it's reassuring these guys that if you stay the course, like, yeah, we're not at a $100 million company. We're not even at a 50. We're not even at $1 million company yet, but we will be. And I'm telling, and I show them, it's all in the proof, right? I'm saying, hey, if you look back this time last year, we weren't even a company. Fast forward 3-4 months, we had these systems in place. Now look at our systems. We continuously are improving. So it's like, it's telling them, hey, we're going to get there. Maybe you're only making X amount of money now, but as the company grows, you're going to make more money. So it goes back to like kind of like with a relationship. If you can sell them on the vision of why they need to stick with you and by your side, they're going to reap the benefits down the road. And the real ones and the people that trust you and trust the process will stay with you, and the other ones will fall off, and that's okay. Not everybody was meant to be on this ship. I hope I answered your question.
No, you did. I'm curious on the selling the vision thing, because it's your business, obviously. But when you sell a vision, like how do you make that like something to buy into? Maybe outside of the just financial factor of it, because there's a lot of jobs that people could work. I would say like I remember seeing this, like the most unhappy professions are actually some of the most lucrative ones, technically speaking. So I'm curious on like how you get someone to buy into something outside the money factor.
Yeah, well, I would like to touch on the money factor first, and then we can get into other things, right? So like it's saying, hey, I'm being real. Like starting an acquisition / wholesaling company, it's very uncommon to get to a $100 million business. So you need to have other businesses that are connected to it to actually produce that $100 million. So maybe starting up a title company, like insurance, something like that. So promising them that, hey, you're going to be a part of this. If you're there from the beginning, you may not be the one signing the checkbooks or writing the checks or the money's leaving your bank account, but you're going to be the person there that you're taking care of. Because I believe in karma. I believe in. I'm a very loyal person. That if you were there from the beginning, I'm going to take care of you, and you're going to have pieces of these other companies. You're going to have shares of the title company. You're going to, you might have percentages, stuff like that. So the money is a great incentive, right, in a way. But also finding people that you switching off of the money. Also finding people that you genuinely enjoy being around and like the vibe and like that you could see yourself, even living with or living around, right? Because I treat it more like a family. Right, like I want these people to live around me. I want us to we work like the kid Aham. Me and him train together. Like we both got an MMA together. We train together. Me and Jeff on the weekends we smoke cigars or go drink coffees at the coffee shop along with other people and stuff like that. So it's like it's the culture, right? It's not just being like a boss. A boss is a great thing, but also like creating a culture and a community to where you have these guys around you that just aren't making money, but they're physical specimens that they're physically in the best shape of their life. They always are continuously growing and learning, and they're making money. So you got everything, and there's people that you generally enjoy. Like I think when I think about hiring extra people, I look at them and I say, can I hang out with them? Can we have a good conversation outside of business? If I can't, I don't want them. I want people around me that I can relate to and that are hustlers.
And speaking to like the personal side of things, what are things that you see yourself like outside the business? Because this has been very like focused into your business. And what are things that investments say that you make personally on your own?
Yeah, so I guess the number one thing is real estate. I own about 10 rental properties right now. There's a learning lesson there. And this is something, you invest into a passive asset like that, but you don't understand that there's repairs that come along. And like, I never see my cash flow off those, right? There's always something going wrong. So I invest in real estate and it's great for appreciation. It's good for things in the long term, 30 years on the line. But if I could have did it over again, and I got this from a book, I want to say it was a Patrick Bet-David book. I think it was in multiple books actually. And it was Tax-Free Wealth by Tom Wheelwright, is start a business, right? So get a cash cow, produce X amount of money, then go into growth assets like stocks, crypto, life insurance, stuff like that, and then 10x your money, 20x your money, grow your money to the point now you buy those passive investments that give you tax incentives like real estate, like investing into oil, stuff along those lines. Aside from that, I I do invest in life insurance because I see there's a unique, opportunity there that you can actually touch your money. I do have 401ks and IRAs and stuff like that, but those are things like, you can't really touch. You can borrow from, but you still have to pay it back. With the life insurance policy, you can borrow from it, and essentially you don't have to pay it back fully. It comes off your death benefit. And then I'm really big right now into, I have stocks as well, but I'm really big right now into the crypto because of the halvening that's happening in April. We're in February, so like less than 60 days away. And that talks about the growth stock or the growth assets that's going to grow 10x money. I'm confident in it. I have a blueprint. I follow a plan. I follow this guy Luke Davis. I paid to get into his like group, and we follow a model. We follow a model of success. And the people in that group are people that own businesses or are trying to better themselves. So I got a solid network that I network with these guys. And then also we're making money together. And I relay that over to my team as well. Like I relay that over to the people that work with me. So we're all following the same model. We're all going to make money together.
Mm-hmm. One thing that I heard from Alex Ramosi that really resonated with me, he called it his main investment when he was in his 20s is the SME 500.
Yeah.
Just like his skill set, mentality through books, through mentors, through his ability to run a business. And that's something that I really reflected on recently and started to gear my focus on, is just like developing my skill set. But I mean, similar to Carmen, like, Roth IRA, real estate, crypto. I think those are all great ways to delay the gratification, to bring it back to that point earlier. I'm interested in hearing Joe and Dan. Like, I mean, I know you guys are both in like, different areas of, profession, but is investing something that you guys still actively do, or like, what does that look like for you guys?
Yeah, so I mean, majority of like my net worth would probably be in stocks, but I don't own any real estate at the moment. But I mean, I think it's important. I think you have to invest, especially the earlier you can get in, the better. I mean,
sure.
And you want to diversify what you're investing in. You don't want to put all your eggs in one basket. So, and honestly, the whole money thing, I think money is just a store. Like, how much value can you create? And that's basically what money is, right? You just get a return. It's just a store of value, right? So it's like, it's pretty much all it is. Like, but I just, in terms of investing, like, I've invested in crypto, stocks, keep some cash on hand in case something comes up. But it's definitely something that, like, as you make more, you should probably invest more too. But I think investing in yourself is the best thing you can do. There's an infinite return on investment if you invest in yourself. You pick up new skills. Like, I go to an MMA gym just like Carmen, right? I mean, the people I've met there, the network I've got from that has been super valuable to me. Like, I have all these older guys now I could turn to if I have a question for like just things that come up, and that's been, I mean, the return on investment. You can't even put a dollar sign on that. So, I mean, I think investing in yourself, especially at our age, like, is something you have to be doing. Like, you have to invest in your health. You have to invest. Like, if all you have is $200, then you should be healthy food first. Like, you have to make sure you take care of your health first, and then you can worry about your finances and everything else. But like, I think investing in yourself should be number one.
And it doesn't have to be invested in courses, right? It like that. Like I did, I do invest in the courses that can continue to grow. Like there's like, I didn't just know everything, right? I invested in courses. I invested into reading. YouTube University is free. You can learn a lot from there. And most importantly, like, you can find free mentors around here that you can invest into them and they'll invest into you. Like, go to a coffee shop with them, and have a conversation. As long as you're providing them some sort of value.
I was just going to say that. Exactly.
Well, yeah. Back when I was in college, I worked for a property group. Now, they didn't pay me hourly, but if I made a deal go through, I would get paid. And like, they taught me a lot. So it was a good, like, the return was there for both of us. And so, I mean, that's interesting. And, and investing in courses, I'll tell you a quick story. When I was a senior in college, and I wouldn't advise this, I put a bunch of money on the Bucks to win the Super Bowl. They won. I used all the money I won to then invest in courses to get my licenses for the job I have now 3 years later. So ended up working out.
Yeah, you paid off.
Yep, I used all that money and just invested it, real estate license, appraiser license, all the stuff that I use now. So it worked out.
Never bet against Tom Brady.
No way.
What were you saying, Dan?
No, I was saying, like, similar to Joe, most of my investments are in stocks. To be honest, I'm not the most financially savvy guy, but nonetheless, I still consult like a financial advisor, see what the best moves are for my goals, and just move towards it. But to your point of just investing in yourself, I think, as you mentioned, of like, say you went to the MMA gym and you've been going there, now you have this whole like pretty much group of mentors and people you can reach out to obtain value and just speak to, and this kind of these confidants. And I think it's not always obvious to a lot of people like what the ROI is of, like, say, eating healthy, especially when you can eat, say, unhealthy and it tastes much better in the moment.
And it's cheaper.
And and it can be cheaper, yeah, for sure. So I think that's a whole thing of like investing in yourself is like the ROI may not be immediate or just may be completely unclear. And something we were talking about earlier when dating in that previous episode we did was the point we were making is like going on these dates, like even though it may not, result in like the long-term relationship could like present itself, maybe you are more confident talking to women or maybe you just feel more comfortable nonetheless. And I think that's important when you go about anything is investing in things that do have a ROI, even if the ROI isn't immediately clear. Like, I think that's definitely a good point to hit home with people. And I'm curious on your thought because a lot of things you were mentioning too came from these role models or these mentors, and these people are like older too. So I think putting stock and value in putting stock into things you hear from older people who come from these voices of experience can put you along their path without making the same mistakes. So who are like some of the people that you guys, like starting off for you, Carmen, people that you look towards for like leadership or like mentorship and guidance in your endeavors?
So before I answer that one, I want to talk about like the health side of it, right?
Yeah, go
because
into
the
it.
health side is like you're saying is the most important side of it.
Mm-hmm.
Number one.
So for me, how I invest into my health is, I have a morning routine that looks like, red light therapy, journaling, breath work, affirmations. Step outside, get my feet in the ground, stretch. Then I get it right into a cold plunge. I do one of the hardest things you have to do, sit in cold water first, and the rest of my day flies like that. Easier. Then I hop out of that, do some cardio, and I'm good to go. So
How long does that morning routine take you?
Dude, I mean, like today, like I was running a little behind. It took me like 20 minutes.
Perfect. Yeah, I was just curious about that.
But I value my time in the morning because
sure.
the rest of it's like, let's go,
Mm-hmm.
right? So I'll usually spend about an hour in my morning.
Okay. Yeah, nice.
Doing that. So it's that's one thing, the morning routine. The second thing is I always get 2 workouts in a day, whether it's weightlifting, it's a double cardio, or it's doing MMA, and that's just like a second break and breaking up my day and really like, making me feel like I'm not just working all day, which I love working. I love the people that I'm around, but you need to break up your day. You get fried, you get burnt out, right? And like one of the other things that I do and is 75 hard, and this will tie into the mentorship role because one of my mentors and one of the top ones that I look up to is Andy Frisella, and he is the founder of the 75 hard program. So I do it at least once a year, and that's 6 months out of the year. That you got to do it.
Mm-hmm. The entire program.
The entire program,
Yeah.
the entire Live Hard program.
Yeah.
So he not just taught me about health, but he also taught me about business. His MFCEO project is the first 300 episodes, and that's how I built the foundation of business. Learning sales, learning marketing, learning these things that you need to do to successfully run a business, and it's free.
I was just gonna say that.
It's free. So it's like why not take advantage of it? You don't gotta pay this guy for that's $10,000 to do it to teach you the bare minimum. He's giving you it over his 17, 20 years of experience, however long it's been. Right? So that's the first one. The second one is and this is going to have mixed emotions, is Grant Cardone. Now, the legal side, whatever you say, but for me, the 2 things that he taught me that I took away was speed throughout your day and to think bigger. So my goals are 10x, And then last but not least is, and it's on the newer side, right? Because he just came about the last couple of years, is Andrew Tate. He also taught me the speed, the stuff. I like his delivery on his message. He taught me that a lot of men growing up nowadays are weak, and he always taught me to become like he's taught to become a provider for the people around you and to just be a hustler, and so these are the guys that for me, I try to like model my life off of. And it really does go back to our first, like your section, right? Is just like, you don't gotta like everything about the person. I don't like everything about every single one of the guys. I'm building my alter ego. I'm building what I take from them, I'm applying to my life. Mm-hmm. But I also am open-minded to seeing why they say these things. Mm-hmm. How about you? Who's some of your...
In terms of business or in terms of just living my life?
Just anything, like mentors, yeah.
So I guess the mentors, because I spoke earlier when we were talking, and I think in Dan's episode was that my granddad, old karate teacher, my dad, guys I kind of modeled like how to be a man after. But in terms of like business guys I look at, like some of the guys I work for, I do try and follow what they do because I have an idea of how much money they make, and I'm like, okay, they had a pretty good gig going, and like they're really highly confident in what they do. So I try and watch that and just emulate things that I pick up, like and apply it to my game a little bit. So I would say there's a couple guys that I work for or work with. You would say that I try and emulate what they do. I think I work for some pretty skilled people, so that's been good for me. It's been a huge advantage. But my dad, he's been a business owner my whole life, so I try and he always kind of keeps us cool. So I've learned some of that from him. I think the big thing he taught me was connections. Like he's really good at with his network. So that was another thing that I've picked up. But I would say my dad, guys I work with, pretty much where I get a lot of my business influence from.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's valuable to always be looking to learn from everybody, whether that is what to do or what not to do. For your role models, Carmen, your role models. I think the most amazing thing is that the ability to cut the learning curve. With your dad teaching you the network, the ability to network. Well, maybe that took you 10 years to learn that, or took him 10 years to learn that skill set of networking, but now it took you a year to learn it because he was there helping you cut down that learning curve. I think that's the value behind all these mentors and people, books or podcasts or things that you can consume. Because Andy Frisella's been in business for 25 years. Grant Cardone has been owned real estate for almost 30 years at this point. I can learn a lot about real estate from Grant Cardone. He's been doing it my lifetime. Andy's been running a business. He started his business in '99. That's when I was fucking born.
And I'll tell you this much: with Grant Cardone, there is, and I would like to know you. I don't know if you said your mentors, but if you didn't, I'd love to hear yours. And then yours is. I'll tell you one thing. Is a learning lesson as well that I took. Going on to the real estate is Grant Cardone told me to think bigger, and I should have took his advice from the beginning. He said your first property should be I think it was a 34 unit. He was saying no more, and I now understand why. When I was buying these properties, I did not understand why. I was like, bro, I'm collecting a couple $100 cash. This is great, but I'm not seeing any of it because there's repairs and there's headaches. So if you think bigger and buy these big buildings and stuff like that, which you're going to need some money, or if you know how to do a syndication model and you're on the general partner side, you can get in with no money out of pocket. And if you're in that, it's less headache, it's more passive, and I wish I would have took his advice because now I'm exiting some partnerships, reducing down my portfolio to now think bigger now. So it was a learning lesson that I took.
For sure.
But who are some of your role models that you would look up to?
Yeah, I would say, Andy Frisella is the big one for me. He's the first podcast. My brother had sent me the 75 Hard podcast that he released in 2019. That's when I first started getting tuned into him. From his podcast, I heard of Sean Stevenson, who has an amazing story with health and fitness. And he's been in the health industry, a fitness and nutrition expert for 20, 30 years. And, his podcast is very detailed. It's very sciencey, but I'm a nerd, so I love to listen and consume that. I'll dive into more of him later, but then, Jocko Willink is a big one in regard to, leadership, in regard to mindset. His books, Extreme Ownership, The Dichotomy of Leadership, those are phenomenal reads. And I love it because he gives the military side of things, because he was a leader in the Navy SEALs, and then the principle that he learned, and then the story on how you can implement that to business. So, for me, those three are the biggest ones that I look up to, that I try to mold myself after. David Goggins is another one as well. I run ultra marathons, and he was the one that basically, him and my brother were the ones that convinced me to do so. So David Goggins is a big part as well.
They're all great too. They're all great.
Do 1,000%.
Yeah.
Dan.
Yeah, one that immediately comes to mind that I'll say had the most profound effect was Jordan Peterson. And I think he just came into my life at a time where I was feeling just down, not with it, not happy with my life. And also what made me gravitate towards him is he actually offered this encouraging message to young men, even though it wasn't specifically only exclusively, I should say, to young men, but a lot of young men gravitate towards Peterson. And that encouraging message always resonated with me of you may not be where you want to be in your life, maybe chaotic and a mess, but there are certain things you could do to improve your life. And he has his book, 12 Rules for Life, which I could not recommend enough to just looking at. And the rules are very simple ones, like cleaning up your room before you go out and criticize the world. That's a pretty simple rule, but the way he dissects it is very insightful and profound, and why it's important, because it's easy to say you should do something, but it's a little more complex to say why you should do it and make that resonate with someone to persuade them effectively. So Pearson's a huge one for me. And I know he's currently embroiled in the culture war. And as we were kind of talking earlier in the episode, that it's difficult because you have to remove maybe some of the BS from the truth. But Pearson, in his early lectures and everything, has been nothing short of this mass inspiration and profound effect in my life. I saw him live once, and great person, I would say, to turn young men towards, to listen on personal development, things to do, how to act. And yeah, I would say Pearson kind of hit things home for me and put my mindset in the right direction of improving my life.
I'll hit it home with saying this is, as long as you stay consistent daily, you take the necessary action daily, you're not going to lose. You're not going to fail. You continue to build that momentum up day over day, week by week, year by year. Mm-hmm. You're going to achieve the life that you want. You're going to have the finance. You're going to have the cars. You're going to have everything that you want in your life as long as you continue to manifest this and work towards that day in and day out. So I'll leave it with that. I appreciate you guys sitting here taking time to talk about this topic.
No, I appreciate the conversation.